In today's lesson, we are going to be discussing a very important concept in Igbo spirituality, Ofo Na Ogu, the twin pillars of truth, justice, and moral order. Now, let me walk us through the concept of Ofo Na Ogu. Among the Igbo people, which is one of the largest and most culturally rich ethnic groups in Africa, there exists a profound philosophical and spiritual framework that has governed human conduct, social relationships, and moral life for centuries. At the heart of this framework is a twin concept known as Ofo Na Ogu, a compound principle that encompasses justice, innocence, moral authority, and truth. The phrase Ofo Na Ogu is deceptively simple in structure, but deeply layered in meaning. Translated through a justice and innocence, or authority and righteousness, it forms the bedrock of Igbo ethics, cosmology, and social order. Understanding it requires stepping into the Igbo worldview, one where the physical and spiritual realms are inseparably linked, where ancestors watch over the living, and where truth is not merely a moral virtue but a cosmic force. Now, let's delve into the Igbo worldview of Ofo Na Ogu, a foundation of understanding of Ofo Na Ogu. To truly grasp the concept of Ofo Na Ogu, one must first understand the broader Igbo cosmological framework. The Igbo people hold that the universe is ordered and balanced, presided over by Chukwu, which is the supreme god, who is too vast and transcendent to interact directly with human affairs. Beneath Chukwu exists a hierarchy of lesser deities, which is called Aroshi or Alosi, ancestral spirits, which is called Ndiche or Ndimmo, and the living community of human beings. In this worldview, the physical and spiritual worlds are not separate realities, but two dimensions of a single moral universe. Actions taken in the physical world ripple through the spiritual realm, and vice versa. Injustice, dishonesty, and moral corruption do not merely harm fellow humans, they disrupt cosmic balance. This is why the Igbo say, "Mmụọ adịghị egbu onye na-adịghị ihe ọjọọ o mere," meaning the spirits do not kill a person who has done no wrong. It is within this cosmological framework that the twin concept of Ofo Na Ogu emerged as the supreme moral compass, binding both the living and the supernatural powers of gods and ancestors to a common standard of justice and truth. The Ofo, which is symbol of authority, truth, and justice. Now, let me explain the physical description and origin of Ofo. The Ofo is a short sacred staff or wand, typically 6 to 7 inches in length, carved from the branch of a tree called Deuterium elastica, also known as Deuterium senegalense. This particular tree was believed to have been consecrated by God as a natural symbol of truth and justice. The Ofo can be made of wood, bronze, or brass, and may be passed down through generations or crafted anew for a worthy holder. Its physical appearance is modest, but its spiritual weight is immense. The origins of the Ofo are shrouded in myth and oral tradition. The most widely held belief is that the first Ofo was divinely instituted, given by Chukwu or through the first human ancestors as a covenant object, a tangible seal between the living and the spiritual world. The general Ofo of all Igbo land is believed to be currently housed in the Palace of God in Aguleri, Anambra State, representing a kind of supreme spiritual authority for the entire Igbo people. What the Ofo represents. The Ofo is simultaneously a physical object and a metaphysical principle. As a physical object, it is a staff held during rituals, prayers, and invocations. As a metaphysical principle, it represents the absolute standard of justice. Scholar Pantaleon Iruegbu describes it as a symbol of constituted authority, while Chika Ifemesia defines it as a short, thick, portable sacred wand, a symbol and guarantee of truth and justice. Among the core values the Ofo embodies are 1. Truth and moral uprightness. The Ofo is the living embodiment of truth. To swear upon it is to invoke the full weight of cosmic justice. The Igbo say, Ofo ga-egbu onye ụgha, meaning the Ofo will kill a liar. One who speaks untruths while holding or invoking the Ofo is believed to invite spiritual retribution. 2. Authority and leadership. Holding the Ofo confers leadership responsibility. It is not merely power, it is moral power, legitimate authority rooted in righteousness. The Igbo principle is right is might. Authority derives from righteousness, not from force or position alone. The third one, connection to ancestors. The Ofo is the principal medium through which the living communicates with their ancestors and with Chukwu. When the Okpara, which is the first or eldest male, holds the family Ofo and invokes the ancestors, he speaks as both a living representative and intermediary of the dead. 4. Protection of the innocent. The Ofo defends those who are innocent. Its power is specifically calibrated to protect the weak, provided they are innocent. That is, provided they carry Ogu on their side. Who hosts the Ofo? The Ofo is hierarchically structured and cannot be held by just anyone. There are multiple levels of Ofo, each with its domain of authority. The first we are going to be talking about here is Ofo Umunna, which is family or lineage Ofo. This is the most foundational. It is held by the Okpara, the first son or the eldest male in a patrilineage. He uses it to pray on behalf of the family, to invoke the ancestors during ceremonies, and to settle disputes within the household. The second is Ofo Obodo, which is community or village Ofo. This Ofo is held by the Onyeisi or Onyishi, which is the eldest man in the community, or the traditional ruler. This Ofo covers the affairs of a whole village or town. The third is Ofo Dibia, which is the diviners Ofo. Some Dibia, which is the traditional healers and spiritual authorities, hold their own Ofo, using it as a tool of spiritual discernment and healing. The fourth one is Oke Ofo, which is the supreme lineage Ofo, the most powerful Ofo used for matters of the highest societal significance, such as resolving intercommunity conflicts or cosmic level crises. Though primarily a male institution, certain women, particularly in leadership roles, could also hold or invoke the Ofo in specific contexts, demonstrating that the principle of moral authority transcended gender when the circumstances demanded. The Ogu, the principle of innocence. What is Ogu? Why the Ofo is more tangible, a physical staff associated with authority. Ogu is fundamentally metaphysical. It is not primarily a physical object, but a state of being, the condition of moral innocence. Ogu is the principle of innocence, the quality of having clean hands and a guilt-free conscience. In practice, Ogu can be symbolized by any object, a stick, a stone, or a small staff tied with palm leaves during an appropriate ceremony. but its true essence is internal. A person who has Ogu is one who, one, has not wronged another person intentionally. Secondly, approaches any matter of dispute or conflict with clean hands. Thirdly, he is not plotting harm against others while seeking protection for themselves. And finally, acts with a conscience free from guilt and malice. Ogu is described in Igbo scholarly literature as a piercing arrow for the guilty. It does not require any external force to catch up with the wrongdoer. It operates automatically as a law of moral physics. When a person who has been wronged invokes Ogu, they are essentially appealing to the universe's inherent justice mechanism, trusting that right will prevail. How Ogu is invoked? Ogu is invoked in a ritual act known as Iju Ogu, literally calling upon Ogu or declaring one's innocence. In situations of deep injustice, when a person has been cheated, falsely accused or abused, and where conventional resolution has failed, they may stand before witness or alone, enumerate the wrongdoings done to them, and then declare their own blamelessness before Chukwu and the ancestors. This act is taken with utmost seriousness. A person invoking Ogu is essentially asking the supreme judge of the universe to intervene. If they come with genuine innocence, tradition holds that justice will be served. If they invoke it falsely, claiming innocence while harboring guilt, the very spiritual force they have summoned turns against them. Ofo Na Ogu, the twin principle in unity. Why they are inseparable? The genius of the Igbo moral philosophy lies in recognizing that authority, which is Ofo, and innocence, which is Ogu, cannot be legitimately separated. This is captured in the Igbo proverb, Onye ji Ofo jidekwa Ogu, meaning he who holds the Ofo must also hold the Ogu. Authority without human innocence is corruption, and innocence without authority lacks the institutional power to achieve justice. Together, Ofo and Ogu form what scholars describe as the twin principle of justice and innocence, the foundation of all basic moral principles in Igbo traditional ethics. These include truth, eziokwu, justice, ikpe ezinụlọ, innocence, ọdịmma, uprightness, ezi omume, and moral purity, obi ọma. The concept of Ofo Na Ogu is therefore not just a cultural artifact, but an entire ethical system. Another powerful proverb captures the completeness of this union. Onye ji Ofo jiri Ogu wee mmeri, meaning he who holds the Ofo and the Ogu together will always overcome. This is the promise at the heart of the concept that moral uprightness is ultimately invincible. The concept as a cosmic constitution. Perhaps the most remarkable feature of Ofo Na Ogu is that it places limits even on the gods. In Igbo cosmology, the gods and ancestors are also bound by the principle of justice. A deity approached to harm an innocent person may turn around and punish the one who made the unjust request. As the Igbo say, Ogu dị na mmadụ, dị na mmụọ. Justice exists among both men and spirits. This is a profound philosophical position. The moral order is not arbitrary or subject to the whims of supernatural powers. Even the divine is accountable to the principle of Ofo Na Ogu. This makes the Igbo ethical tradition remarkably sophisticated. The universe is governed not by caprice but by a binding moral law. Roles and functions in Igbo society. The roles of Ofo Na Ogu in Igbo society include 1. Dispute resolution and justice. In pre-colonial Igbo communities, before the advent of a formal court, Ofo Na Ogu served as a supreme judicial framework. When disputes arose over land, property, marriage, inheritance, or allegations of theft or wrongdoing, parties could be brought before the Ofo to swear their innocence. No person with a guilty conscience could successfully litigate before an Ofo or approach a deity against someone whose conscience was clean. The belief was total and the deterrent powerful. To lie upon the Ofo was to invite sickness, ruin, or death upon oneself and even one's descendants. This created an atmosphere where people thought very carefully before making false claims, because the spiritual consequences were believed to be real, swift, and unavoidable. Governance and political authority. In Igbo political life, the Ofo was the equivalent of what scholars have called a mace or staff of office, comparable to the ceremonial mace in parliamentary chambers around the world. The king, chief, or Onyishi, who held the Ofo, was expected to govern with righteousness. The Ofo was not merely a symbol of power, it was a moral covenant. Leaders who abused their position were understood to be holding the Ofo without the Ogu, authority without innocence, and the spiritual consequences were expected to follow. Ritual and religious life. The Ofo is central to Igbo religious practice. It is used during morning prayers and libations to the ancestors, where the Okpara invokes the protection and blessings of the lineage spirits. Festivals and community ceremonies, where it legitimizes proceedings as taking place under the watch of the ancestors. Initiations and title-taking ceremonies, conferring moral authority on new leaders. Oaths and solemn declaration, where parties swear on the Ofo to seal agreements or prove innocence. Social order and moral policing. In pre-colonial Igbo land, the concept of Ofo Na Ogu functioned as the community's moral watchdog, because everyone believed that wrongdoing would eventually be exposed and punished through this cosmic mechanism, regardless of whether a human authority caught the offender. It created profound self-regulation. The principle embodied in natural justice mantras such as "Oberegbum Bonwea, let he who came to kill me kill himself," and Umecharaburu, which means let the consequences rest on whoever did it, give people confidence that no injustice would be permanently overlooked. Comparative and universal perspective. For those from non-Igbo backgrounds, several universal parallels help illuminate the depth of Ofo Na Ogu. Karma in Eastern philosophy. The closest popular concept in Eastern tradition is karma. The belief that one's actions have consequences that will eventually return to the actor. Like Ofo Na Ogu, karma operates as a cosmic law of cause and effect, independent of human enforcement. The innocent are ultimately protected, the guilty are ultimately confronted by the results of their deeds. Natural law in Western philosophy. The idea that morality is grounded in universal natural order, not merely human convention, is a cornerstone of Western natural law theory from Aristotle and Cicero to John Locke. Ofo Na Ogu anticipates this philosophical tradition. Justice is not merely a human invention but is woven into the fabric of existence itself. The myth of parliamentary authority. As scholars have noted, the global equivalent of the Ofo Na Ogu in terms of political authority is the parliamentary mace, the ceremonial staff with which parliamentary proceedings in many countries cannot lawfully begin. The mace represents constituted authority and legitimate power. The Ofo performs this same function in Igbo society, but with the added spiritual dimension of moral accountability. The biblical concept of righteousness. For those with a Christian background, the concept resonates with the biblical notion that the righteous cry out and the Lord hears them. Psalm 34 verse 17. The belief that divine justice ultimately responds to the innocence cry. The clean hands metaphor in scripture. Who may ascend the mountain of the Lord? The one who has clean hands and a pure heart. Psalm 24 verse 3 to 4. Directly parallels the Igbo requirement of Ogu as the prerequisite of approaching divine authority. Ofo Na Ogu in literature and cultural arts. The concept of Ofo Na Ogu has left a significant imprint on Igbo literature and artistic expression. Chinwe Achebe, Nigeria's greatest novelist, weaved the Ofo into the fabric of his celebrated novels. In Things Fall Apart, the Ofo appears as a symbol of ancestral authority and legitimate leadership. In Arrow of God, the protagonist, Eze Ulu, holds the Ofo as he prays for his people, a scene that powerfully illustrates the unity of spiritual authority and communal responsibility. Contemporary Igbo artists, painters, and scholars continue to invoke the concept of Ofo Na Ogu as a framework for cultural identity and social critique. Artists such as Chike Aniako and Obiora Udochukwu have reinterpreted Igbo cosmological symbols, including the values embedded in Ofo Na Ogu, through visual arts, asserting that this ancient ethical framework remains relevant in addressing modern socio-political challenges. Decline, challenges, and contemporary relevance. The first, which I will be explaining here, is erosion through colonialism and Christianity. The arrival of European colonialism and Christian missionaries in the 19th and 20th centuries significantly disrupted the Ofo Na Ogu framework. Colonial administrators imposed foreign legal systems that supplanted traditional justice mechanisms. Christian missionaries, often misunderstanding the spiritual significance of the Ofo, condemned it as idolatry, a characterization that scholars today widely reject as a product of cultural ignorance. As Christianity spread through Igbo land, many families abandoned the practice of holding and invoking the Ofo. The communal moral architecture that the concept sustained gradually weakened. Many Igbo people today, particularly in urban areas, have little direct relationship with the Ofo, though many still recognizes its cultural and symbolic significance. The cost of the decline. Scholars have drawn a connection between the declining influence of Ofo Na Ogu and rising social disorder in Igbo communities and Nigeria at large. When people no longer believe in the cosmic accountability built into the Ofo Na Ogu framework, moral self-regulation diminishes. Corruption, false claims, abuse of power, and injustice become more common because the spiritual deterrent has been removed. Scholars argue that the reinvigoration of the idea of Ogu, of moral innocence as a non-negotiable precondition for the exercise of authority, could serve as a powerful corrective to the moral decadence afflicting many communities in Igbo and Nigeria at large today. community, and revival. Despite these challenges, the concept has shown remarkable resilience. Many rural Igbo communities still practice Ofo invocations. Even among urban, educated Igbo Christians and professionals, the phrase "Ofo Na Ogu" is commonly used to express moral confidence, to assert that one stands on the right side of a matter. The underlying principles of the concept that authority must be earned through righteousness, that innocence is self-protecting, and that cosmic justice is real, continue to shape Igbo moral consciousness. Moreover, the concept's adaptability is evident in how it has evolved to accommodate modern realities. As one account from Arochukwu tradition notes, even Ofo Na Ogu accepted the positive changes that came with civilization, just as it once accepted the shifts in attitudes towards twins when communities recognized that the old taboo was unjust. This built-in flexibility suggests that the concept is not a relic of the past, but a living ethical tradition capable of growth. Key proverbs and their meanings as regards to Ofo Na Ogu. The wisdom of Ofo Na Ogu is preserved and transmitted through a rich body of proverbs. Here are some of the most significant ones. Ofo Na Ogu dị mma. To live with truth and innocence is the best way. A general affirmation of the value of moral uprightness. Ofo ga-egbu onye ụgha. The Ofo will kill a liar. A warning that invoking the Ofo falsely is spiritually fatal. Onye ji Ofo jidekwa Ogu. He who holds the Ofo must also hold the Ogu. This means that authority without moral innocence is illegitimate. Onye ji Ofo jiri Ogu wee mmeri. He who holds both the Ofo and Ogu shall overcome. The promise to the righteous. Ultimate victory is guaranteed. Mmụọ adịghị egbu onye na-adịghị ihe ọjọọ o mere. This means the spirits do not kill a person who has done no wrong. The universe protects the innocent. Ọ bịara egbu m gbuo onwe ya. Let he who come to kill me kill himself. The Ogu mechanism turning against the unjust aggressor. Ogu dị na mmadụ, dị na mmụọ. Justice exists among both men and spirits. Even the divine is bound by the moral law of Ogu. In conclusion, the concept of Ofo Na Ogu is one of humanity's most elegant articulations of the belief that justice is built into the structure of reality itself. It is not merely an Igbo cultural artifact, but a sophisticated ethical and cosmological framework that speaks to universal human longings, the desire that the innocent will be protected, that the guilty will face consequences, and that those who wield authority will be held accountable to standards higher than their own ambitions. For the Igbo people, this framework shapes every dimension of life, from how families were led to how communities settled disputes, from how leaders were expected to govern to how individuals oriented their private moral lives. The Ofo, as a physical symbol, made these abstract principles tangible and held in the hand. The Ogu, as a metaphysical state, made them personal and internal. In a world still grappling with questions of justice, corruption, and the abuse of power, the message of Ofo Na Ogu is urgent as ever. True authority flows from righteousness, not from force or position. The innocent need not be afraid, and those who hold power without moral innocence hold nothing that will stand in the test of time. As the Igbo say, Ofo Na Ogu dị mma. To live by the truth and innocence is and will always be the good way. Daalụnụ. Thank you.